Hey YouTubers, I've got a little treat for you today. I've got a Winner Lines, Winner, electric train. These trains were made by the Lionel Corporation. They were made in early 1930s to, I believe, mid 1930s. This particular train was made in 1931 to 32, and Joshua Lionel Cohen did not wish to put the Lionel name on them because they were so cheap. And the reason that they made these cheap little trains was because of the Great Depression. They were hoping that they could build up their business by selling less expensive trains to people who couldn't afford the traditional Lionel trains. And I'm going to run this little 1010 engine up next to a 253 Lionel engine, and you can see how tiny they are. They're about the size of a HO train, slightly larger, but they run on 031 track. So here's the 1010 engine. There's a 1011 Pullman, and there's the other 1011 Pullman. I think Lionel did an absolutely outstanding job on the lithography, just like Marx and American Flyer did. I wished Lionel had not stopped making their tin trains after the war with a beautiful lithography, or we just call them litho, and we call them tin trains, although they're actually steel. And if you don't believe they're steel, put a magnet on them and the magnet will stick. So you'll see four wheels on each one of the Pullmans. Some incredibly funky little couplers that tend to flop around. I had to bend them just right so they wouldn't hit the center rail. And up here you'll see the Winner Lines lettering, and I think they did a great job doing the springs and the air compressors and everything on there that they painted on there, stamped on there actually. And you can see a tiny little pantograph that was supposedly supposed to connect to an electric wire, and this tiny little headlight here, which is really just a pretend headlight. There is no headlight on this train. There is no illumination at all, inside or out. And it's got an open frame motor chassis, and it just barely squeezes into this shell. And I had to flex the shell slightly to get it in and out. And they really went on the cheap side when they built the motor. The brush plate is riveted onto the motor frame, and so it would make it really difficult to service. And the wires are soldered directly to the brushes, which also would make it very difficult to service. When I obtained the train, it ran somewhat erratically, and what I did is what I do with a lot of trains, I know many people use mineral spirits. I like carburetor cleaner, which I always have plenty because I've got an old classic car. And of course you want to remove the outside frame so you don't damaged the paint with the carburetor cleaner, and took it outside and gave it a good spraying on the commutator plate and turned the wheels after each spray, and then I could see crud coming off, and I could see the commutator plate start to shine where I had sprayed. And probably ran the wheels around about 24 times, and then left it outside, let it dry to get the smell and the nasty carburetor cleaner on it, and brought it inside, put it together, and it ran like a brand new train. Another comment I have about it is it only has one center rail contact up here. So if you have maybe an open on your track, it will stall. And I found out I had an open on my track, where it wasn't completely grounded. And all my other trains have two contacts, so I've never ran into that problem. So now I know that I need to solder that little center rail. And I know exactly where to solder it, because it's where this little Winterlines train stalls. Show a picture from the top. You see the beautiful green. You also get a better look at the 253 and see how much larger it was. I believe I already told you that this particular train set was made 1931 to 32, and the same time that this 253 was being made, except it was made all the way up to 36. They didn't make the Winterlines very long after Lionel got out of its financial problems because of the Depression, thanks to the Mickey Mouse handcar, which they sold, I believe, for about $1 each, but it was such a success that they were out of the red. So they stopped making these little Winterlines. So they're really difficult to find. And I don't know if people threw them out in the scrap drives during World War II because they didn't run anymore and they couldn't fix them. Basically, if you had to replace the brushes, and take the brush plate off, you're going to have to drill out the rivets and put some screws in there, which for somebody who's handy, like myself and many other train enthusiasts, it would be pretty easy to do. But for most people, would not. So I'm just going to start this up and run it around now that I've got the couplers riding high enough so that they don't hit the center rail, and you can see how these just flop around. They're not really in there very good like the Marx couplers are. The Marx couplers are static for up and down, and then of course we'll go from side to side, and these are not static for up and down. They'll flop right down and hit the center rail. Very poorly designed, so I bent them correctly, and fortunately there was enough tensile strength left, so I didn't have any problem with it. And of course I don't have a brand new one to see what they look like when they came out in 1931, because I wasn't here in 1931. So let me also give you a picture of the front of the engine, which I think is pretty cool. Got a door up there, and it's got a nice cow catcher with gold litho design below the frame, and a door and 2 windows. You can also see this is just nothing. It looks like a clamshell up here, a pretend light. And you'll also see the doors and open windows between the Pullman cars. So let's run it around. I should have mentioned that obviously because it's so cheap, there's no reverse on this. So I don't have to worry about going through reverse, neutral, and forward. It's just going to go forward. And here it'll start to hesitate. There's the part of my track that needs to be soldered. And there she goes. Pretty awesome little train. And there's another part of my track that needs to be soldered in the middle. I suppose I could add another center contact. I'd prefer not to. I would like to keep this original. It's in such fantastic condition for its age that I don't want to go messing with it. So at any rate, there is the Lionel Winner with two N's, Winner Lines, electric train. So I hope you enjoyed this, and possibly you've never heard of one of these before. I hadn't until probably about 10 years ago, and then I assumed that Winner was another line that Lionel bought out. Had no idea. So once again, this has been a Big Lizard production, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.